friends. In the last 25 odd years that I have taught in JNU, I have never worried about JNU, even once. I have never worried about JNU. JNU has always been very comforting for me because it has been a place where I have been a student. I was a student for a while here. And then comforting because I matured intellectually in this place by a very simple process. This simple process was in conversation with other colleagues, in conversation with students. Yeah, and I don't use a mic at all, so yeah, okay, yeah. Now I'm worried about JNU, and unfortunately I do nothing else but worry about JNU, because we are now in the midst of a very, very, very deep crisis here. This crisis is, this business of compulsory attendance is just the tip of the iceberg, as I have written somewhere. This business of compulsory attendance has a much deeper malaise, a much deeper rot which has come into this university, and I can date it exactly from 2016. It's not as if, or 2014 to begin with, but we had a time lag because there was somebody else who was the Vice Chancellor between 2014 and 2016, and that person held on despite all the pressures, and 2016 this university succumbed. What are the symptoms that, I'm sure all my colleagues have spoken about what's been happening in JNU. The crucial thing is that JNU is now in the process of what may be called cultural cleansing. And this cultural cleansing is basically a very major subterranean, and not exactly subterranean, open plot of the RSS. And the saffronization, the process of saffronization in JNU is now underway by killing and suppressing all its pluralistic democratic institutions and ethos, which had served JNU perfectly well for a very long time. So you look at the trajectory of what's been happening, and you see the attacks consistently in every forum where due process has to be followed. Procedures have been completely violated. Procedures which had served this university perfectly over the last so many years have now been completely violated, torn asunder. Academic council minutes, academic council meeting minutes are fudged. There's no dissent which is recorded in the minutes. People dissent over and over again. They are brushed aside. Minutes are cooked up, not brought to the academic council for ratification and confirmation, and taken straight to the executive council and made law. Minutes, discussions which have actually not taken place, are now made into what very clearly decisions. And this fiasco of compulsory attendance is precisely that, as was revealed by tweets by none other than Dr. Madhu Kishwar, who is their fellow traveler, an ideological fellow traveler. And her tweets show clearly how this entire business of compulsory attendance was manipulated as a tissue of lies which has been imposed on us. And no wonder teachers and students, at least most teachers and most students, are up in arms against it. They are united on this. There are some who are arguing, and this was argued in the TA meeting, I might dare say, that teachers have to be given samman. And if you do not give samman, then, being a teacher is not right. You have to teach, students have to give samman to teachers, and compulsory attendance is somehow related to giving that samman. So it's not pedagogical, it is not academic, it's a question of samman. So when you come to when you attend my lectures, all of you come to lectures, you're not come to listen to what I have to say. You have come to give me samman. Now that business of samman is exactly the way in which this university is going to be shaped. I remember the first time we met the Vice Chancellor, that was the 2016 when, at the time, I think 250 teachers or 300 teachers met him in the School of Arts and Aesthetics. That was probably the first and the last time when he met teachers en masse. And after that, he realized that he was in no position to carry on a dialogue with JNU teachers. It's just not possible for him to have a dialogue with JNU teachers because there is no way that he can communicate to them. We don't speak the same language. We don't speak the same language because this Vice Chancellor has only one point agenda: to convert JNU into a product-oriented university. These are his terms. These are exactly his terms. The JNU has to be a product-oriented university where you have to have engineering and business administration, etc., in which you can open up what may be called vocational, paying certificate courses. He's also a big fan of certificate courses, which means basically what you do is you pay and you get a quick certificate over a semester, and that's it. The university gets resources, the pedagogic and the academic content doesn't really matter. So, coming back to the point which, I'm sure all of my colleagues have been raising over and over again, this is a systematic and systemic attack on this university. This is a systematic attack because it is coming from a deep-rooted conviction that JNU possibly is now and I think I've heard, maybe it's a rumor, that someone who was from the other students' organization and was an office bearer of the JNUSU, apparently said that JNU is the only place that stops the project of Hindutva from taking over the entire country. Now, if that is we are the only institution that is standing between Hindutva and secularism, then I'm proud to be in that university to stand for pluralism, to stand for secularism, to stand for progressive ideas, to stand for dialogue, to stand for radical thinking. JNU is a place which makes you think radically. JNU is a place which also enables you. It's a very, I know there are many problems in this university. Of course, every institution has problems. But it's a question of recognizing those problems. It's a question of trying to solve those problems by a process of dialogue, by a process of participation. And that is what JNU is all about. It's not about coercion. It's not about diktats. It's not about samman. Samman is something that you do not get by, I don't want samman by students attending my classes. My samman lies in my swabhiman. But the point is that it is not this kind of cultural language that has now come into JNU, which is frightening. Reservations have been flouted, deprivation points have been flouted, GS cash has been put into cold storage, and we are now in a peculiar position where we are actually fighting the university in court. Our teachers have gone to court to fight the university to restore the democratic ethos of this university. I don't know how much the court will go along with us, but we are hopeful. The procedures, the processes have been flouted. That's what made JNU what it is. And our effort should be, collective effort should be to get those procedures back on track. Everything has to start from the center level, from the SFC level, from the center level, to the school level, to the board level, to the academic council. Every decision that has taken which affects you and us has to go through that process. If it doesn't, then what is happening in JNU is autocratism, is authoritarianism, and something that we cannot accept. So we are here, standing here in unity, with shoulder to shoulder, protesting against the subversion of JNU. It is not a minor, it's not a minor matter anymore. Even vice chancellors previously have tried to exercise their authority time and again. only to realize only after they've been pulled back. Our academic council meetings are full of these episodes where vice chancellors tried to put something, have tried to implement something, and they have been pulled back. That's because though they had tried to be authoritarian, they had not tried to be manipulative. This vice chancellor is both manipulative and authoritarian. That is a deadly combination. And he has full political backing. He has full political backing which no other vice chancellors previously had. All vice chancellors in a sense political appointees, but they do not necessarily are political creatures. This vice chancellor is a political creature. He has been appointed by a political dispensation. His task, his brief is to fulfill the requirements of this political dispensation, and he will go the extra mile to do that. We have to resist at every step. We have been resisting at every step. It is a very tiring, it's a very, very exhausting process. Every day there is something new which comes up. Every day there is some problem or the other which surfaces. Every day we hear that this or that has happened. And we go back again to the same business of trying to marshal ourselves, to regroup and to fight. This is the situation in JNU. What this requires is a united stand between all progressive sections of this university. And at least so far, this university is largely still progressive and, well, secular of course, but progressive and radical. And that is how it should be. We have to come together, we have to put our voices together, we have to put our shoulders together, and then we have to move. And I completely agree with my friend Hemant that at some point we have to move from here to there. When that happens, how that happens, it's a collective decision, but this will not do. Staying here will not do. This has to move from here to there. And I would urge the Januta to consider that as a very important part of our agenda. How to move the agitation from discussion here or a protest here to a meaningful protest where at least our voices are even being heard now, but more than our voice, a presence is registered, a collective presence is registered at that place which we know as Freedom Square. So sometimes we have to move, sometimes we have to get there, and in the interim, I think what we also need to do is that teachers and students have to get together in order to chart out a creative set of programs. A series of programs like we did. We had a nationalism lectures. We should start out and do something along those lines, so that our voices are not just heard for a few hours and then we go back to our desks. We live on our desks, I can assure you that. But the fact is that our voices are much more than our desks. So on that note, I'm heartened by the presence here. I'm heartened by my colleagues here. And on that note, as one of the senior citizens of this university, I really look forward to this concerted effort, to this concerted, united effort between teachers, students, and all sections of the university. It's only through that we can survive. Now, believe me, it's a question of survival. It's a question of survival in JNU. And it's not survival has many definitions, but one is that you survive well. And this is the only way that I think we can survive well. Thank you very much.